Awesome. Hi, Estefania. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to take a couple of minutes to talk to you and to talk about your organization and the great work you're doing in and around Idaho with our different communities. Uh, for those of you who are joining us, my name is Misty Tolman. I'm the Idaho State Director for Planned Parenthood Votes Northwest and Hawaii. I use she, her pronouns, and I live in Meridian and work out of kind of Meridian and Boise, depending on the meetings that I'm having and what time of year it is. And Estefania, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for having us, Misty. I'm Estefania Mondragon. I'm the Executive Director of Poder of Idaho, and I use she, her pronouns.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, I know that this is a super busy time of year for all of us, and so we just thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to talk a little bit more about Poder and the great work that you're doing. We've had the opportunity to partner a little bit and look forward to being able to partner in even more ways as we look toward the future and look toward building power and making sure that we are serving and making sure the communities in Idaho have what they need to live and to thrive. And so I wanted to see if you would take a minute and just kind of talk about Poder a little bit more and your mission and the great work that you're doing in and around Idaho.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Misty, for this opportunity, and thank you, Planned Parenthood, for having us on. Poder of Idaho started as a committee of a larger organization, and it was just focusing on DACA issues. We were just a bunch of volunteers that had, both seasoned and new immigrant or immigration organizers come on board and working around the issue of DACA. Once DACA was rescinded, that's when we really kind of sprung into to action and led a rally at the Capitol steps, much like a lot of folks were, doing rallies back in 2016 because so many issues were, being attacked. And so same with Poder, we were again a group of volunteers just coming together and organized a rally in about 3 days with over 1,000 people in attendance. We had a base of 600 folks sign up like in less than 10 minutes by using mass texting software. And we knew that right then that, this wasn't the only action we could have. We had to continue organizing and continue mobilizing for the Latinx and immigrant community here in Idaho. So that's kind of how Poder started. And since then, we've had 4 more rallies around, the issue of DACA, issue of immigration, as well as family separation at the border. We've built quite a larger base than just this original 600 and started working on different issues. We saw that, the rallies at the Capitol were gaining a lot of support, but we needed to transition into a new period for Poder, and that was one of building community across the state. What we noticed that within the Latinx community, there was folks in Idaho Falls weren't talking to folks in Nampa and weren't talking to folks in Haley. So we realized we needed to go on like a road trip, right? To meet folks, meet leaders, and talk about the issues most important to our community across the state. And what we found was, transportation was a huge issue, right? A lot of our community who are undocumented do not have access to driver's licenses, state issued driver's licenses here in Idaho. Many folks go to surrounding states like Oregon and Utah and Washington, even as far as California, to get a driver's license because that's where they're able to apply as undocumented folks in the United States. So the issue kept coming up, and we decided to do something about it and launch the Manejando Sin Miedo campaign, which is a camp which in English it translates to driving without fear. So and it's because many of our folks, many of our undocumented folks in our community drive with fear every day, right? When they're taking their kids to school, when they're going to, taking their kids to soccer practice, when they themselves are going to work. They are being pulled over by police, first of all, targeted, and then being pulled over by police and asked, practically asked for their papers. And when they don't have them, they are taken into custody, detained, and deported many times throughout our a campaign, we heard numerous stories about this happening, and having children be in the back seat, seeing their mothers and fathers being taken from them by Idaho police and then later detained and deported by ICE. So it's a huge issue, right? And it's like
Yeah.
you don't know if you're going to see your parents ever again. As
Mhm.
someone who had an undocumented mother growing up, that I knew firsthand what that felt like, right? To not may possibly not see my mother, um, for because she's being detained for something as minor as a traffic stop. So it's a campaign that's very close to many of our hearts here at Poder, um, because many of us in the organization were either immigrants or first generation Idahoans here in Idaho. So
Yeah.
it so we, like many of us, like our board all the way to, our contractors are immigrants or children of immigrants. So again, we had to do something about it. And that was the
Yeah.
first campaign that rose. We're now doing some work around economic justice through a state EITC campaign alongside the Center for Fiscal Policy, and also working alongside the IA for Educate to organize Latinos around education. So lots of different campaigns happening right now. We're transitioning, or we're the Manejando Sin Miedo campaign is starting to transition into, doing more grassroots organizing,
Mhm.
as we're transitioning away from legislative session and looking at continuing the community building that we started, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've heard like incredible things about specifically about this Driving Without Fear campaign and the different ways that it's really like pulled the Latinx community together around the state. Can you talk to us a little bit more about where that campaign is? I know that um, it's not an effort that has halted, even though the legislature is trying to throw up some barriers there. Where have you come, and where are you headed with that campaign specifically?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'll talk about is how we've done a pretty good job of partnering with unlikely allies, right? Like folks like the Dairymen's Association, and folks in industry, right? That would benefit from have an economic would benefit economically from having immigrants be able to apply for Idaho state driver's licenses. So though that was an interesting kind of first step that we took, and then as well as part as hitting the grassroots, right? Really going to, went out to Burley, and in our first meeting we had
Mhm.
70 people show up, right, from our community,
Wow,
which was just like, spoke directly to the issue and how we needed to address
absolutely.
it, right? And went to Idaho Falls, Moscow, Idaho, and continued that conversation. And what we heard is, yes, we need to build this. We need to build identify leaders within our community that wouldn't traditionally be considered leaders because either they don't speak
Yeah.
English, or they just don't have access to mainstream programs, right, and mainstream
Mhm.
organizations and businesses, but they themselves have that leadership potential. So for Poder, that's our demographic, right? It's folks that
Yeah.
would never have been out yeah, would never have been covered through like regular modes of outreach. So, and
Yes.
having them be empowered and lead the efforts in their local communities. And that's kind of the beauty about this campaign is it's building leadership, and recognizing leadership that wouldn't normally be considered, a leadership skill or what leadership looks like, just because we do live in these
Yeah.
white supremacist systems that see
Yeah.
leadership being a certain way, but for our community
Mhm.
it's completely different, right?
Mhm. Very cool. That sounds incredible. And if folks wanted to get involved, if there's activists and supporters out there who wanted to get involved in the various campaigns that you're doing and the various efforts, how could someone do that?
Yeah, so I think the next step in this campaign is going to like really grow the grassroots, right? So we're looking at, building community groups, getting these leaders together, virtually, of course, and building these community groups out in these different areas. So it's now that we've identified the leaders, the next step is to build these groups. And so we'll be coming out with, virtual groups here soon, within the next week or two to a month. We'll see how long it takes to get folks on
Mhm.
board. And and feel free to join those groups, right? We would love to see them
Awesome.
be immigrant led,
Mhm.
just because we firmly believe that like the first step to liberation is having folks directly affected by issues at the forefront. So
Absolutely.
we're looking at organizing our folks first and then having them reach out to broader communities. So, but first and foremost, follow Bullet on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We do have a petition. N- it's no longer valid for this legislative session, but that's probably still a really good way that we get your contact info. So that's one way. Also, message Bullet directly on our social media accounts, and we
Great.
do have a phone number which I haven't memorized the number yet, so I will pull it up. And we'll go from and you can text that number directly and we
Okay.
will get you connected with the campaign as well.
Awesome. And we'll have all of those links and numbers up with this video so that folks can know how to follow Pereira on all those social medias and um, which number to text to get involved.
Yeah. And the number you can text is 208-992-7481. And
Awesome.
just give us your name and let us know where you're, texting from, and we can get you connected with a local community group there.
Perfect. And then lastly, if there are folks who would like to, maybe they don't have as much time on their hands, but maybe they'd like to donate to the cause, is there a way that folks can contribute to the different campaigns you're running and donate to the cause at large as well?
Definitely. Right now, well, it is fiscally sponsored by the Idaho Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Great.
So we have a link up on their website
Awesome.
where you just press donate and just click on the Bullet committee, and you will and your money will go directly to our programming.
Perfect. So we'll make sure that link is up too. And if folks, can give as they're able to this incredible organization doing such great work in our communities, that would be amazing. Well, thank you so much, Estefania. I won't take up any more of your time, but I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And I look forward to continuing to work together.
Me too. Thank you so much
All
again
right.
for having us on.
Thank you. See ya.